Get comfortable with English in comfort. This is your English listening practice podcast to help you learn and improve naturally.
How can you improve your English speaking skills when there's no one to talk to?
Maybe no one around you speaks English. Or maybe you feel too shy to join groups, so you end up just listening instead of speaking.
That's a common struggle, but here's the good news. Practicing alone can actually help you improve just as much as practicing with others, if you do it the right way. I'm Emily, by the way.
And I'm Liam. This is English in Comfort, the place where you can learn English while you relax, lie down, or even while you sleep. No pressure, no stress, just natural English and interesting topics.
And today, we'll share practical ways to practice by yourself, step by step, with examples you can try right now. So if you've ever wondered how to actually speak more English on your own, this is for you.
Stick with us. We'll make it simple, fun, and something you can start using right away.
Let's get started. Let's start with a method that is simple but really useful. Talking to yourself.
Yeah, and before you say, "That sounds weird," just hear us out.
A lot of learners feel nervous about speaking because they're afraid of making mistakes in front of others. But when you practice alone, there's no pressure. You can take your time, try out new words, and just get used to speaking without worrying about being judged.
Right, no one's listening, no one's correcting you. You can mess up all you want, and guess what? Nobody cares.
Exactly. And the best way to start is to just describe what you're doing. If you're making coffee, say it out loud. I'm boiling water, now I'm adding coffee, it smells good. You don't have to make full sentences at first. Just get used to speaking.
And don't just list what you're doing like a robot. Try adding little thoughts like, "I think I'll use oat milk today." Actually, no, I'll just have it black. You're practicing real conversation patterns that way.
That's a good point. When we speak in real life, we don't just state facts. We react. We change our minds. We add little comments. Practicing like this makes your English feel more natural.
And here's something fun. You can also pretend you're explaining something to someone. Like, let's say you're cooking. Imagine a friend asking, "Hey, how do you make that?" Then try answering as if they're there. "Oh, it's easy. First I chop the vegetables, then I heat the pan." That way, you're not just practicing words. You're practicing how to explain things clearly.
That's actually a great exercise. And if you don't know a word, don't stop. Just explain it another way. For example, if you can't remember the word spatula, you can say, "That flat thing you use to flip pancakes." This helps you think in English instead of translating.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll realize you're missing a word. That's good too. You can look it up later and actually remember it because you needed it.
So, if you've never tried this, give it a shot. Pick something you're doing right now and say it out loud, even a few words. It might feel strange at first, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
And hey, if you ever get caught talking to yourself, just say you're practicing English. People will probably think it's cool.
All right. Now that we've got you talking, let's move on to another great way to practice alone.
Here's another easy way to practice speaking. Just read out loud. Simple, right?
Yeah, but people underestimate how effective it is. It's not just about reading words. It helps with pronunciation, fluency, and confidence.
Plus, it forces you to actually say the words. A lot of learners understand English well in their heads but struggle to get the words out smoothly. Reading out loud is like warming up your mouth for real conversations.
It also helps with rhythm. English has a natural flow. Some words are stressed more than others, and when you read out loud, you start to notice that.
Okay, so how do you do it? Pick something to read. A book, an article, subtitles from a show, whatever you like. Start slow. Don't rush. Focus on saying each word clearly. Then, once you're comfortable, try reading a little faster.
And here's a fun trick. Read the same paragraph twice. The first time, just say the words. The second time, add more feeling. Imagine you're acting in a scene.
Yeah, like if the line is, "I can't believe this is happening." Don't just say it flat. Say it like you actually can't believe it's happening. Or if you're reading a story, change your voice for different characters.
A lot of audiobooks have text versions, so you can listen to a line, pause, and try to match the speaker's tone and pronunciation.
That's actually a great way to catch small mistakes. Sometimes you think you're saying something right, but when you hear it back, you realize it sounds different.
And if reading a whole book sounds like too much, just start with subtitles from your favorite show. Read along with the dialogue. It's an easy way to practice without feeling like you're studying.
So yeah, if you've got a book, an article, even a cereal box in front of you, read it out loud. It's simple, but it works.
Here's another way to practice. Narrate your day as you go about it. Just say what you're doing, like, I'm making breakfast. I need eggs, but I forgot to buy them. Maybe I'll have toast instead.
Isn't that just talking to yourself? We already covered that.
Not exactly. When you talk to yourself, it's more like random thoughts or practicing conversations. Narrating is different because you're describing things as they happen. You're turning everyday life into language practice.
Okay, so instead of having an imaginary conversation, you just say what's happening around you.
Yeah, and it forces you to think in English, which is the goal. Instead of translating in your head, you get used to forming sentences naturally.
Just speaking out loud while I do things, right?
You don't have to limit it to what you're doing. You can talk about the past. I woke up late today. Or the future. I need to go grocery shopping later. That way, you practice different tenses.
You can even narrate things around you, like, that dog looks sleepy, or the weather is perfect today. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. And if you're worried about people looking at you funny, just whisper or do it in your head. The point is to keep your brain engaged in English.
That actually makes sense. It turns learning into a habit instead of something you set aside time for.
And once it becomes a habit, speaking English feels more natural. Next is something that a lot of people avoid: listening to themselves speak. It's uncomfortable at first, but trust me, this works. You'll hear things you wouldn't notice otherwise.
Yeah, no thanks. I don't even like hearing my voice in a voicemail.
I get that. Nobody likes how they sound at first, but if you never listen, how do you know what needs fixing?
I feel like I already know. I can hear myself while I talk.
Not really. When you're speaking, you're focused on what you're saying, not how you sound. But when you play it back, you catch things. Maybe your pronunciation is off, or a sentence sounds awkward. And if you want to take it further, compare it to a native speaker. Say a sentence. Listen to how a native speaker says it, then try again.
Sounds a bit painful.
It's not as bad as you think. And you don't have to overanalyze everything. Just notice patterns. Maybe you're mumbling certain words, or you keep repeating the same phrases.
Let's say someone tries this and realizes they mispronounce a word. What do they do?
Simple. Repeat it the right way. If it's a common mistake, write it down and practice.
But what if someone hates their voice too much to do this?
Then start small. Record just one sentence. And remind yourself, this isn't about having a perfect voice. It's about making progress.
It's like watching yourself on video to improve body language. Feels weird, but it helps.
You know, once you get used to it, you won't even think about it anymore.
Fine, I'll try it once. If I cringe too hard, I'm blaming you.
Okay, let's go over 2 techniques that help with pronunciation, rhythm, and fluency: shadowing and echoing.
Wait, aren't they both just repeating what you hear?
They're really similar, but there's a small difference. Echoing is when you listen first, then repeat after a short pause. Shadowing is when you repeat at the same time as the speaker, trying to match their pronunciation and rhythm instantly.
So echoing gives you a second to process the sentence before speaking, while shadowing is more like a reflex?
Both are useful, but shadowing is harder at first because you don't have time to think.
Got it. Echoing is like listening, then copying, while shadowing is imitating in real time.
And since they both train your mouth and ears to work together, they help make your speech sound more natural.
So if someone wants to try this, where should they start?
Pick a short audio clip from a show or podcast, something with clear speech. First, try echoing. Listen, pause, then repeat. Once that feels easy, try shadowing by speaking at the same time as the speaker. Okay, The last thing we want to suggest is using apps that can help with feedback. They're pretty handy when it comes to improving pronunciation or even grammar. Some of these apps let you practice by speaking and then give you instant feedback on how you're doing.
Yeah, that's actually a good one, especially for people who are a bit shy or don't feel comfortable jumping straight into group conversations. Apps give you the chance to practice without the pressure of talking to someone else.
True. Some apps like ELSA Speak or Speechling can listen to your voice and correct your pronunciation right away. It's like having a little tutor in your pocket. And even some AI chat assistants will have conversations with you.
That's awesome. But remember though, it's super important not to rely only on those apps. They're great for practice, but you should definitely mix it with the other techniques we talked about. Like shadowing or talking to yourself, those help you get more comfortable with real conversations.
Right. And when you feel ready, you can practice with other people too. But even if you don't have someone to talk to, these methods can still get you far. If you really take these strategies seriously and make them daily habits, you can improve a lot, even if you're practicing alone.
No excuses. Just keep at it and you'll be amazed at how much you can improve even by yourself.
So, don't let the lack of conversation partners hold you back. Use the apps, practice daily, and you'll get there.
All right, guys, that's it for today. Take care and keep practicing. Catch you next time.
Time to go over some new words and phrases before we wrap up. Struggle, meaning to have a hard time doing something. Example, I used to struggle with listening to fast English, but now it's getting easier. Stick with, meaning to continue doing something without giving up. Example, learning a new language takes time, but if you stick with it, you'll improve. Pressure, meaning a feeling of stress or urgency to do something. Example, I feel a lot of pressure when I have to speak in front of people. Judged, meaning being evaluated or criticized by others. Example, she was afraid of being judged for her accent, so she avoided speaking. Patterns, meaning regular ways in which something happens or is done. Example, if you pay attention to patterns in English sentences, it's easier to understand them. Underestimate, meaning to think something is less important or difficult than it really is. Example, don't underestimate how much daily practice can improve your English. Flow, meaning the natural, smooth movement of something. Example, his speech had a nice flow because he didn't pause too much. Covered, meaning to have talked about or learned something. Example, we've covered a lot of useful tips for improving your listening skills today. Tenses, meaning the different forms of verbs that show time, past, present, future. Example, it's important to learn verb tenses so you can talk about different times correctly. Mumbling, meaning speaking too quietly or unclearly. Example, he was mumbling, so I couldn't understand what he was saying. Echo, meaning a sound that repeats because it bounces off surfaces. Example, there was an echo in the empty room, so every word sounded twice. Reflex, meaning a quick automatic reaction. Example, with enough practice, understanding English will become a reflex. That's it for today. Keep practicing, keep listening, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Thanks for joining us.